Hey, what's up? This is 5 Minute Finance, and I'm Matt. The goal of 5 Minute Finance is to help you better understand the fundamentals of personal finance so that you can take action to improve your finances today. 5 Minute Finance is designed for everyone, but is especially for college students, people who have recently graduated from college, and young people who might feel that their education and family didn't give them the information about personal finance that they need to succeed. That's how I felt after college. So I want to help you so that you don't have the same feelings that I did. In the previous video, we talked about saving, mainly about how to pay yourself first. Today we'll talk more about saving, focusing on what an emergency fund is, why you need an emergency fund, and how to set one up. Here's a frightening fact. Research shows that 64% of Americans don't have enough money to deal with an unexpected $1,000 expense. Another frightening fact. About 50% of Americans couldn't come up with $2,000 in 30 days if they needed to. That's like 2/3 of the country that would be in serious trouble if they had an unexpected expense of $1,000, like if they got in a car accident, if a pipe broke in their home, or even if they needed to travel to a funeral last minute unexpectedly. That's really stressful. Not only would an expense like that stress your bank account, but it would also stress you mentally as well. If you can, it would be best to avoid these stresses altogether. The best way to do this is to have money saved up in case of an emergency, aka the emergency fund. What is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is money you have saved in your savings account, or better yet, have saved in a dedicated savings account that is set aside for emergency use only. Not, these new Air Maxes are on sale and I desperately want them emergency, but a real emergency, where you need the money right then for something serious, in case you lost your job, or if you were in a car accident, or if you had a medical emergency. The emergency fund will help you from going into serious financial distress, like bankruptcy. You have to be the judge of what is truly an emergency to you, but general guidelines would indicate that something like needing the money to pay rent because your paycheck didn't come through on time is an emergency, and your friend's going on a last minute vacation to Hawaii and you wanting to go with them is probably not an emergency. Why is having an emergency fund important? First, it means that you have money saved in the moment you need it the most. If you're lucky, you won't ever need it. Your money will just sit there and chill until you need it, which is great. It will also give you peace of mind that if something happens, you will be prepared. No stressing about asking family members for money, having to sell something that's valuable to you, going to a check cashing place for a loan that will cost you a ridiculous amount in interest payments, or even having to declare bankruptcy. No worrying about what might happen and if you'll be screwed or not. Just the knowledge that you have money saved in the instance that you need it. That's a really good feeling. How do you build up an emergency fund? First, set up a specific savings account that will be your emergency fund, or dedicate part of your current savings to be your emergency fund. You can start regular transfers to that account, and then you don't use that money unless it's an emergency. A great way to jumpstart your emergency fund is using a lump sum like a tax return, a bonus at work, or a birthday or holiday gift to fund your emergency fund. After that, it's really just saving money specifically for your emergency fund over time. Every dollar counts. I like to set goals for my emergency fund. First, start with a goal of $1,000 in your emergency fund. Next, you can decide to grow the emergency fund to 3 months' living expenses. Finally, aim for 6 months' living expenses in your emergency fund. I use Capital One 360 for my emergency fund because they let you split up your savings into multiple sub-accounts so I can have a specific emergency fund. This reminds me not to use the emergency fund unless it's an actual emergency. Even if you can only save up $1,000 to start, you're ahead of 66% of the country. That's a great achievement. Think about starting your emergency fund today.